Joining me now is Colorado Democratic Senator Michael Bennet. He is a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee and a 2020 presidential candidate. Senator, let's start with your hat as a member of the United States Senate and the Intelligence Committee. The U.S. intelligence, the Pentagon has released footage of this drone being shot down. They say it was over international airspace. What, in your view, is the appropriate response from the United States?
I obviously can't comment on the intelligence. Thanks for having me. But we should take this very seriously. I think the likelihood that this is a mistake is remote. Iran knows how to provoke the rest of the world. They know how to provoke us. They are malevolent actors in that region. It is absolutely the case. And it's the reason why I so much regret how the president is approaching this recklessly. He should never have torn up the Iran deal to begin with, which was the nuclear agreement that President Obama reached with the Iranians. Now we're contending with both his blowing up the Iran deal, one day threatening to strike Iran, the next day saying that he doesn't want regime change in Iran. He's sending mixed signals to the whole region. So I think it's very important for us to get the intelligence, figure out what actually happened, and then respond in a way that protects the national security interests.
What does that mean to you, though? Does that mean a military response? This seems as though, if this was intentional, a military action.
It means, I don't want to say what I think it specifically is, but I think that we need to take countermeasures when something like this happens.
Can you give us any more insight into countermeasures?
How would where the intelligence leads us.
How would a President Bennet handle this?
President Bennet would not have blown up the Iran nuclear deal to begin with and jeopardized the alliance that we built to keep Iran's nuclear program in a box. Now we have a situation where they're doing all the stuff Iran does, from Yemen through southern Iraq into Syria and into southern Lebanon, and funding proxies and terrorizing the region and potentially terrorizing us. And they have the potential now to backstop it with a nuclear weapon. They're saying earlier this week that they're going to start enriching uranium again. When President Trump came in, every intelligence agency in the world said that Iran was a year away from breaking out to a nuclear weapon. The Israelis, the U.S., the Chinese. Now, what does the Trump administration say they want? They want to get to a place where Iran is a year away from breaking out to a nuclear weapon. It doesn't make any sense. So I think we need to be a lot less reckless than he is.
I'm glad that you raised this question of the enrichment of uranium. One of your colleagues on Capitol Hill, Lindsey Graham, who has often been on the side of advocating for stronger measures in the face of these kinds of things, said he gave the president some advice about what to do on that particular topic. Take a look.
So I talked to the president this morning. You need to tell the Iranians that if they increase their enrichment program for uranium, that would be a provocative act toward the United States and Israel, and all bets are off.
Do you agree with Senator Graham?
I think it would be a provocative act, but I think we have put the Iran, because of what Donald Trump has done, we've put the Iranians in the driver's seat to decide how to provoke us. When we had the deal, which Iran was complying with, and every intelligence agency in the world said they were complying with it, our allies said they were complying with it, we had agreement that they were behaving in a way which was moving them away from a nuclear weapon. When I voted for that deal, we didn't know whether Iran would comply. By the time Donald Trump blew up the deal, we knew they were complying. So Lindsey can say what Lindsey says, and the Iranians will provoke us because that's what they do. But we need to be very careful that this doesn't escalate into something beyond our control.
All right. So we've spoken to you now as to the extent we can as the senator who serves on the Intelligence Committee. But I want to now talk to presidential candidate Bennet more directly. And, of course, the big campaign story today is surrounding Joe Biden. 2020 Democrats are continuing to pile on him for comments that he made about working with segregationist lawmakers when he was in the Senate.
Why on earth would a Democrat speak nostalgically of working with a segregationist?
A guy running to be the head of our party, which is a significantly diverse and wondrous party, doesn't understand or can't even acknowledge that he made a mistake.
I don't think that you should be bragging about working on a bipartisan basis with segregationists.
I think, as he's probably seeing today, it'd be best if he used different examples.
The senators that he is speaking of with such adoration are individuals who made and built their reputation on segregation. The Ku Klux Klan celebrated the election of one of them. So this is a very serious matter.
In response, Joe Biden is not backing down.
How does it feel that your Democratic rivals are implicitly saying that you have issues talking about race?
They know better. There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career. Period. Period. Period.
Senator, should Joe Biden have made these remarks?
Well, he should never have made these remarks, and he should never have said that Cory Booker should apologize to him. It's ridiculous. The other problem here is that he keeps saying that if Donald Trump's not president anymore, that everything will kind of go back to normal and we're just going to be able to work together in a bipartisan way, ignoring the incredible structural problems that face us as a national government. We've had Supreme Court decisions like Citizens United that have captured Washington and separated it from the American people. Decisions like Shelby from the Supreme Court that have made it difficult for people to exercise their right to vote, and the gerrymandering that the politicians themselves has done. These are structural problems that we have to address, I think, in order to get Washington to work together. This isn't like the good old days when if everybody could just get along, we'd be able to move forward. It just isn't built that way anymore.
So is this a sign of Joe Biden being out of touch with the times?
I think he is out of touch with the times.
Do you think
at least when it comes to how this place works? But the truth is, when they were in the White House, unfortunately, for the last 6 years of the Obama administration, that was when the Tea Party really locked down the Congress, and a minority of a minority tyrannized the Republican Party, tyrannized the Democratic Party, and immobilized the American government. That's where we're sitting right now. And by the way, that all happened before Donald Trump got here. And Mitch McConnell has been the brains behind all of that. We, the American people, have to find a way to close over that or beat that if we're going to make any progress. That's why we haven't made progress on climate. That's why we haven't made progress on health care. That's why we haven't made progress on reforming our democracy, because Mitch McConnell, the chances of him doing that are less than his retiring to Berkeley, which I don't think he's going to do.
I would be surprised.
I'd be very surprised.
I have to say,
he would go there if he thought he could get more judges. That's the one reason he would go. But in all seriousness, this is what we're contending with, and this is the American people's experiment in self-government. This isn't Michael Bennett's or Casey Hunt's or anybody else. It's the American people's, and we got to find a way to get it back to them, and we have to make it work again. And in order to do that, we have to respond to the structural problems, the money that's in our politics, the gerrymandering.
I know you've introduced a package of legislation aimed at this.
I have, yeah.
So I have to be honest with you, I'm a little surprised to hear you say that, essentially the era of potential civility is over, as you've been somebody who's been a big advocate for that. I am, because I believe, here's what I believe. I don't think I have a monopoly on wisdom. And I don't think Lindsey Graham has a monopoly on wisdom either. But we have been sent here on behalf of South Carolina and Colorado to find a way to work together. That's how the system is supposed to work. The founders created a system not based on the idea that we would agree with each other, but based on the idea that we would disagree with each other, and out of those disagreements we would get more durable and more imaginative solutions than if you were just the king and got to decide everything, or if Lindsey were the king, or I were the king. That's how it's supposed to work, and it doesn't work that way anymore. And that we do have to find a way to bring back. I represent a state that's a third Republican, a third Democratic, and a third Independent, and I believe I owe representation to everybody that I work for, whether they voted for me or whether they didn't. And most of them think that we should be figuring out a way to work together. I just don't think it's a matter of personality. I think it's a matter of a structural assault on our democracy, a structural assault on the right of people to vote in this democracy, now a Trumpian assault on our free press, on the independent judiciary, on the rule of law. All of that stuff has to be contended with, I think, if we're going to make progress in this democracy. And when we're dealing with stuff like Iran and we're dealing with stuff like China, these are places that are not inconvenienced by our form of government, which means it's all the more important that we're figuring out how to actually wrestle the challenges to the ground and find a way to come together to do the sort of work that the founders imagined we would do. So do you think that Joe Biden, as a front runner, he has been running primarily on, or in large part, on electability, and that's what Democrats say they want. They say they want to beat President Trump. Do you think that this shows that he would have a harder time beating the president?
We need to beat Donald Trump. So the number one issue for Democrats is electability, as it should be. An important other issue is that we've got to figure out how to govern the country again. Beating Trump is necessary, but it's not sufficient. I'm not surprised at all that Joe Biden is the front runner. He's much better known than anybody else in the field, and he was a really good vice president, and he's been a senator for a long time. So it doesn't surprise me that he would have front runner status. He's going to have to compete for this job just like everybody else, including myself, has to compete for it because we need to be able to demonstrate that we can beat Donald Trump. And I think that's as it should be. This position isn't owed to anybody. I'm sure Joe Biden doesn't believe it's owed to him.
Do you think he should apologize for what happened?
I do think he should apologize, and I definitely don't think he should have asked Cory Booker to apologize. But that's up to him.
All right. So to combat all of this, you do have a new anti-corruption plan, which I think includes that constitutional amendment that we talked about briefly. What's the rundown on that particular plan? Do you think it'll go anywhere?
Well, it's not going to go anywhere as long as Mitch McConnell is the majority leader. That's for sure, for the reasons that we were talking about. But I think if the American people, once they see what's in this plan, I think they're going to support it. I mean, it runs the gamut from overturning Citizens United to ending political gerrymandering for the benefit of members of Congress, so that people actually get to pick their representatives rather than their representatives picking the people they represent. It has a lifetime ban on members of Congress from ever becoming lobbyists. I've been introducing that for 10 years, and I could never get anybody to sign on to it. Never. And then finally, John Tester came onto it. I guess he finally decided that he was going to go back to Montana.
Why not?
Yeah, if he left here. And now Ted Cruz and AOC finally last week said that they supported this idea. So I think it's building momentum, and I hope that Mitch McConnell will bring it to the floor. I doubt he will. So I think that if there's a President Bennett in the first week that I'm there, I'm going to encourage the Congress to pass this. I think we have to give the American people faith that we're actually paying attention to them. They have given up on this town.
Yeah.
They sent a reality TV star to be president of the United States. That is how low a regard they have for the institutions that are here. And we've got to find a way to overcome it, not to go backwards, not to go back to some golden day when it all worked well, but to go forward in a way that actually can continue this exercise of self-government for the next 230 years. That's what we have to find out how to do.
All right, Senator Michael Bennett, and presidential candidate. We will see you in Miami on the debate stage coming up next week. Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll see Chuck down there.
I will.
This is, of course, going to be right here on MSNBC. Michael Bennett will be on stage for next week's first Democratic presidential primary debate. Watch next Wednesday and Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern on NBC, MSNBC, and Telemundo.
Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor, subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Beat the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.